Slating noise. That's not the slating noise I wanted. I hate you. Okay. So welcome. This is 2K Away, a spooky sister podcast. I'm Paige. That's I'm Payton.
You're Payton. I'm Paige.
I don't know why I even did that. Okay, so I'm Payton. That's Paige. This is 2K Away. It's that name because we're 2,000 miles away from each other. And currently, I am in my bathroom recording. So don't be alarmed if it's echoey. That will change soon. I promise I'm moving next month, so it will be better. If you hear any noises, like I'm sitting on my toilet. I swear.
Not going to the bathroom.
I'm not using it, yes, but I am on the toilet. Okay, so our first episode, we're going to be talking. Basically, we wanted to start a podcast so we can talk about creepy shit that we love.
Yeah.
Essentially. So we're going to be talking about murders, paranormal, aliens, conspiracy theories, all the good stuff.
All the fun stuff.
Yes, the fun stuff in life. So, our first episode
is going to be a two-parter, actually.
Yes, is going to be a two-parter. We are going to be talking about the unsolved murders of the Cerkvenick family. Specifically John and Johanna Cerkvenick. It's a little something kind of from our hometown area from Panama, Illinois. And we thought that would be a nice, like, jump start. Like,
get into this.
Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know. But,
sure.
Yeah, sounds good. So Paige is going to be mainly doing the storytelling, I guess, because you were conveniently there and able to get documents.
Yes.
And when you look this up on the internet, nothing comes up.
Literally nothing.
Literally nothing. You can be like, nothing. Oh, Cerkvenick murder, Panama, Illinois. And it'll be like, Panama, Illinois, Wikipedia, and that's it.
Right. And there's not even much on the Wikipedia Panama page.
No, there is not. That's where I got all my research, which you did too.
I sure did.
So,
well, kind of. I have another book, but yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, you at least had a little bit more materials than I did.
A little bit.
I did not. I had no materials. I had the Wikipedia page, but that is next to no materials.
Correct.
So, Paige is actually going to be going through the first two episodes, and we're gonna like back and forth.
We'll go back and forth.
Yes. So
you'll definitely comment on some things because there are some things that you haven't heard yet.
Yes, and I am excited. And my episode, you're not gonna know what it is, and I'm excited about that. So
that's actually good. That should be really good, actually. Mm-hmm. We should not really tell each other much about what's happening with the next one.
Yes, and I already told you that, but since you don't listen to me.
I'm pretty sure this is the first I'm hearing about it.
No, it's definitely not. No. Like I said, because you don't listen to me. But anyway, so let's just dive right in. I don't know why I said it like, let's just dive right in. I don't know why I said it like that.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Also, we do have a Facebook. It's 2K Away Podcast, right? Or 2K Away. I don't know. You're in charge of the Facebook. I'm in charge. Yes, I'm in charge of the Instagram. We have an Instagram, and it is at 2K Away Podcast. If you'd like to give us a follow or suggest something.
We would love some suggestions. Yes,
absolutely. And again, if it's because let's face it, most people that are going to be listening to this is where you're at. So if you want to suggest something from our hometown area, Paige does it. Paige is going to do the research.
I can do that one.
Right, exactly. So let's dive right in.
All right.
Go ahead.
We'll go ahead and start out with the little tiny history of Panama. Don't want to get too far into it because, again, Wikipedia doesn't tell you much.
Right.
We're going back to 1951 because that's actually when the murders happened. So prior to that, Panama was a little mine town. It's kind of where a lot of people came to Panama because of the coal mine. So a lot of the immigrants were European, Italians, Czechoslovakians, Hungarians, Austrians, you know, a lot of them were coming to Panama from overseas. So there was
a lot of Eastern Europeans.
Right.
Definitely Eastern, yeah.
So a company out of Chicago, a coal mine company, Shoal Creek Coal Company, actually, started the mine in 1905, but they didn't finish the shaft until the following year. So 1906 is when they actually started bringing up coal. So it was a little up-and-coming town because of coal mine. So in 1910, the population was about 708 people, which is nuts to think about now. It's so funny.
Right. It's like, what, 100 people?
Well, it's bigger than Donaldson.
Okay, sorry, 103 people.
Right. Right. With approximately 5 bars, maybe.
Hey.
That might be an exaggeration.
It's a dry climate. They're real thirsty.
Right.
It's not dry at all.
So, so 708 people in 1910, but by 1920, it had gone up to 1,281 people.
Yeah,
that's
I think
how
it was it's like a 40% rise. Actually, that's
what I saw. Yeah. Well, that's been its highest population. I noticed. So that's how many people were coming to work in the coal mine. So its highest recorded population was 1,281 people, and that was in 1920. Prior to that, though, so the mine had only been going for about 10 years which actually, I mean, I think it's pretty good that it was 10 years in is when they had a bad explosion in the mine. It didn't happen like right when it first started, but I mean, obviously you don't want that.
Right. I think especially back then though, they didn't have like the technology that we did now to make it safer. So actually 10 years in without a big accident like that happening, I think is actually pretty good.
Pretty good.
So
now that is not downplaying what happened though, because I mean it was a pretty big explosion, and there were a total of 11 people that were killed.
Yes.
In the mine. So that kind of that hurt a little bit. So that happened in 1915. There was one notable person that had made a start in Panama, kind of. His name was John L. Lewis. He was a nationally known union organizer. And he worked in the coal mine for a short time. So that's kind of where he got his start.
Yes. Oh, and the reason that we are mentioning the coal mine is because one of the victims, John Cerkvenick, he actually worked in the coal mine. Pretty early on, I believe, right? He worked there many years.
Yes. I don't know that he may have worked there until it closed, but I don't think he worked there until it closed. But
hold on, say that one more time because that just made no sense.
I said I don't think he worked there until it closed.
But I think he worked there till it closed is what I said.
I meant, but I think he worked there, but just not until it closed is what I meant to say.
Okay, now we're on the same page.
Perfect. The coal mine did eventually close in 1933, so it had a good run, honestly. That's kind of when the town's population started dwindling down, because by 1950, the population dropped by over half to 520 people. So there was even more people in Panama in 1910 than there was in 1950.
Right.
And it's just been a downward spiral from there. The other thing that Panama, and this could be just a small town thing, it kind of had some heated elections. Yes. But again, that could just because it's a small town and everybody knows your business and some nasty things could be said. So after the elections, some bitterness tended to stay, basically. So that's kind of what I've got leading up to the Cerkvenicks.
Yes.
So during this time, there was a couple.
Sorry if you just heard that toilet squeak. I swear. I'm not moving.
I didn't, if that makes you feel any better.
That does make me feel better. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So during this time, there was a couple by the name of John and Johanna Cerkvenick. And I believe that is the correct way to say it. It is spelled Cerkvenick. So at first I'm like, Cerkvenick? No. Believe it is Cerkvenick.
Yeah.
A little background on the two of them. John was born in 1881. Mm-hmm. He was born in Austria, so that's where he came from. He came to America in 1907.
Woo,
at the age
Austrians.
Austria,
yeah.
So he came to America in 1907 at the age of 26. Joanna was born in 1892, and she was born in Yugoslavia. And she came to America in 1914 when she was 22. I really don't know when they got married. I don't know where they were before Panama. Don't really have a lot of background.
Yeah, unfortunately, because this is not only an old case, but from, well, our area, which is in the middle of nowhere. There's not really a ton to go off from there, really, so we don't really know much backstory. We would love to give them more credit and let them in the spotlight a little bit more, but unfortunately we just don't have that information.
So I mean, if anybody would love to give us a little bit more information,
oh yeah, most definitely,
once this airs and you have some information that you'd love to give us, you can private message us, put it on Facebook.
I don't even know how many kids that we knew how many kids they had, but we don't even know anything about their grandchildren or maybe where they are today. Who knows?
Not sure when they were married, but they did end up having 5 kids total. They had 1 boy and then 4 girls. By 1941, all of the kids were married, out of the house, and they were all living in Chicago. John and Johanna stayed in Panama. So they ended up having the only milk business in Panama, which is kind of precious because, that's when they would milk the cows, bring the glass bottles, set them on your porch, take the old glass bottles, the whole thing. So they had actually, and I found out that it was
classic mailman stuff.
Classic. So it had been operating for like 30 years. So they'd been in Panama for quite a while.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm almost wondering if he hadn't worked until the coal mine closed, because they'd been doing the milk business for like something like 30 years. So they lived just outside of town near the old mine shaft. So that's also where the coal mine talk comes into play. We're thinking, it says their property was just inside the Montgomery County line, because Panama split between Montgomery and Bond County. Their house was actually on the Montgomery County line. So the way our grandma explained it is...
Yes, shout out to Mama. Woo!
Woo, Mama. So she said when you're going into Panama, on Panama-Donaldson Road, before you get into town, so down by where the ball fields were, that cows ended up.
Yes.
Down where the old ball fields were, down in that area, kind of like in the little valley type of deal. That's where she had explained where their house was. That's kind of what I'm picturing in my head. And even though we have not got a chance to go boonie cruising, me and Mama, we still plan to. So I'm hoping to maybe, I don't know, hopefully by the time maybe this airs, I'll have some pictures of the area because obviously the houses are not there anymore, but hopefully have some pictures of the area to be able to kind of give you a little roundabout of where it is, where it was.
Yeah.
So they got up every morning at 4 a.m. Disgusting. 4 a.m. to milk their cows.
I've never even been to that country.
It's just crazy talk to me.
Right.
So they got up at 4 a.m. every morning to milk their cows. They had 8 cows total, and then they were delivering milk around dawn every morning. And it was like clockwork. Everyone was saying they are so reliable, and you can set the clocks to them because they just, every single morning they did this. So, and honestly, everybody around town they were great people, apparently.
Yeah, they said they were quiet, they kept to themselves, but they were very nice, very personable.
Very nice, very respected around town. But it was also rumored around town that they were pretty wealthy, and they didn't use a bank. They kept all their cash around the house, and supposedly they had some old money buried somewhere around their house.
Yes.
So this leads us to November 17th, 1951. Mrs. Mary Cudlack, I believe is how you pronounce it. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me.
Well,
she got up.
You tried, so.
I tried. I believe it's Cudlack. Kudlak. Cudlack.
That sounds good.
Cudlack?
Yeah, other.
She got up early that morning to get her milk off of her porch, like she found that her empty bottles were still there. And this wasn't empty batters. They were still there. So she thought it was strange because they should have, already delivered her milk. So she went across the street to her next door neighbor, asked her, and she said, nope, her milk hasn't been delivered either. So thought it was weird because, again, they're always very prompt with the milk delivery. So she thought maybe the truck broke down, maybe one of them was sick, one of those scenarios. But by 10 o'clock, she was worried that something was wrong, and then she went down to their house to check on them. When she got to the house, she knocked on the door, but didn't get an answer, and thought she had smelled like gas or like furnace fumes or smoke or something like that, because it was a pretty strong odor.
Right.
She went around to the basement and was yelling for them, but still they didn't answer. So she went home and called her daughter, who lived in Hillsboro at the time and was apparently married to the undertaker in Hillsboro. He answered. She explained what was going on, and he said, we'll call the sheriff. I'm going to go to the firehouse to get some masks. And then he got the ambulance, and he called the sheriff, and then made his way to Panama. So I'm thinking around 11-ish, maybe, is by the time that most of the emergency personnel had gotten to Panama, because, again, there was no cell phones around this time for easy access.
Someone
so
probably
had to get to a phone.
Run home.
Get to a phone. Hopefully they're home so you can talk to them. So among the emergency personnel that was there was the undertaker, F. Harley Carroll, who was Mrs. Cudlack's son-in-law. So he had the ambulance. Sheriff Jack Marley, fun fact, our great-grandpa, Francis Overball, who you'll hear about later.
We're gonna name drop.
We're gonna do a lot of name dropping. So Pa Hap, as we so lovingly called him, he lost the sheriff election to Jack Marley. Fun fact there. Undertaker F. Harley Carroll, Sheriff Jack Marley, Circuit Clerk Joe Williams, which is hilarious to me, because working in the circuit clerk's office, knowing that the circuit clerk showed up on the murder scene.
Right.
Because, I mean,
so next murder you have to go to.
I'm like, hey, listen, I'm on the way.
Right. Here I am.
I'm bringing the ambulance.
I am here to investigate.
Let's get this done.
Right.
Chief Deputy Al Hanisco, I apologize. Village Trustee and Volunteer Fire Chief John Savant, members of the Volunteer Fire Department, and the state's attorney Otto Funk. Which, again, it's just funny, some of the people that would actually go. Right. And, of course, they were all helping look, it's just funny.
Right.
So, Coroner Jesse Boyd also ended up joining a little bit later, but he hadn't been able to get there just yet. But he did join not much longer after all of them showed up. So they ended up having to break down the door because the front door was locked, which, very unusual at the time, because first of all, not many people lock their doors. Second of all, it's Panama with a population of 500 people.
Right.
You just didn't lock your doors or your windows at the time.
No.
But all of the windows were closed and locked. The front door was locked, and I think the basement door was actually The basement door may not have been locked, actually, but they did break down the front door. So when they got in, house was full of smoke. So they get and realize that the source of the smoke was actually the bedroom, but they hadn't seen any active flames anywhere in the house, but they realized that there was some sort of flames, like something smoldering in their bedroom. Mm-hmm. So they get back there. Again, all the windows were closed, so really the fire didn't burn much of anything other than in the bedroom. Because I mean, with everything closed up, it just sucked all the air out of the room and it just died.
Right. It had no oxygen
none whatsoever. Yeah. So they get into the bedroom and immediately they see John's body on the floor. So how he's positioned, they had 2 double beds in the bedroom, and he was laying in between the beds with his head on his back, head towards the door. So they noticed that he was still in his pajamas, but it looked like he was trying to hurriedly put on pants, like maybe somebody had got to the door.
So he had pajamas on top and then like pants on the bottom.
He was trying to put them on over his pajamas, actually.
Yeah, so they weren't actually like buttoned or anything.
No. So he was burned, but not so badly that it was beyond recognition. So he just basically his skin was all yellowed. By the way, just a little heads up, it's gonna have some interesting, what am I trying to say? It's not gonna be gory, but it's also not gonna be fluffy.
Yeah, it's not. So anyone that listens to when we're gonna talk about like murders and serial killers and stuff, I want to do all the details. I want to.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get the details.
I'm gonna discuss details, and we're also we're gonna do a little hey, just a warning, it's about to get real rough.
Yeah. A little rough. So just a heads up.
Yeah, a little warning. So go ahead. It's about to get a little rough.
So, again, he was burned, but not so bad that they didn't know who he was. But looking at him a little bit further, they noticed that he had a lump on his forehead, and then they realized he was shot. Mm-hmm. Shot in the chest. Also beside him was a blood-stained cloth. Not really much went into that, but it was noted that there was a cloth with blood on it. They didn't find anything in his pockets. He didn't have his wallet, because normally he always kept his wallet in his regular pants, which he was trying to put on, but nothing was in his pockets. Then they realized that the bed on the left-hand side, so when you walk into the bedroom, the left-hand bed, that one was still smoldering. So they had to put out, not flames, but it was still doing something.
Right.
They opened the windows to try to start airing everything out. And then they realized that's when they found Joanna. So they found charred remains in the bed that they had just put out, realized it was her. So what happened was she had been wrapped in a blanket of sorts.
Yeah, I think like one source said mattress, and then another source said that she was wrapped in a
blanket.
I think it's more likely that she was wrapped in like just maybe like a thick like quilt,
a thick
or
blanket
of that nature.
Yeah, which sometimes the mattresses back then though were super thin. It could have been, but I think it's more likely that it was a blanket.
It's probably just a blanket.
Yeah. So she was wrapped in it, and it was wrapped around her head as well. And they noticed it was still partially wrapped around her head, because the problem was pretty much there wasn't much left of her. She was so badly burned. So there was little left of the body, but it was said that all that remained of her lower body was a charred shin bone, and attached to it was a burned slipper. So kind of her head and her shin was what was left. Mm-hmm. So eventually they did find some buttons when they kind of went through some of the ash on the bed. Found buttons on the bed, which led them to believe that she was actually dressed at the time of the murders. So he had been in his pajamas trying to hurriedly get dressed. She was already dressed, is what they were thinking. They also found some blood on the wall above the bed. So due to the position of the bodies and the blood and everything, the sheriff actually believed that they were killed in a different position than where they found them. So I don't know if they thought they were killed maybe in a different part of the house, different part of the bedroom. Either way, they think that the bodies were moved post-mortem. Mm-hmm. So Sheriff Marley and Deputy Hannah Scose, they started searching the house. The rest of the house had some smoke damage, but they did notice that it looked like it had been ransacked. Some drawers were open, or when they opened drawers or cabinets, it was not neat and tidy like it should have been. They did try to get some fingerprints, but there was so much smoke damage. That was impossible to do. At this time, as it does in a small town, word had spread that something was going on with the Cerkvenicks. So a crowd had definitely formed by the time they start looking for clues after they had found the bodies. Neighbors had said that they knew the milking business money was in a jar in the kitchen. When they looked, they found it, but the jar was empty. A neighbor had said that they knew that Johanna had kept her money because the John and Johanna had actually, they kept their money separate. It was kind of like a dollar for you, dollar for me type of deal. But they did have a separate jar for the milking business. So one of the neighbors said that they knew that Johanna had kept her money in a black suede purse. And they thought she had kept it in their bedroom. So they searched the bedroom again, and they just didn't find it. They knew that John had been shot, and they wanted to get an autopsy to see if the bullet was still in him or if it had passed through, because they weren't, he was burned and they really couldn't tell.
Right.
So they had went out to the barn next. The cows were very restless. It showed that they hadn't been milked that morning. So because of this, the sheriff was thinking that the murders definitely happened before at least 5 a.m. because, well, they had gotten up every morning before, got up and milked their cows. A woman in the crowd had told the sheriff that she'd seen a cream-colored car about 500 yards away from the crime scene, which she didn't see who was driving, but it was near the old mine road, which I'm not exactly sure where that is. I don't know if it's a road that's still around or not, but it was near the old mine road about 500 yards from the scene.
Right.
So she didn't really see who was driving, and I guess there was a couple people that had actually seen this, but this woman had said that she didn't know who was driving and she didn't recognize the car. Mm-hmm. Which, again, small town, you kind of know all the cars.
Right.
But she said it definitely wasn't from somebody who lived in Panama. So the sheriff had called the State Bureau of Investigation in Springfield, called Superintendent James Christensen, and he headed down with the mobile crime lab. And at this time is when the Cerkvenick children was notified, and they started down from Chicago, which would be just awful to learn.
And then have to drive 5-6 hours.
5 or 6 hours, I would imagine, from Chicago by then. Or they could have taken the train, but, who knows?
Either way. So
they were able to get John's body out and to the medical examiner. So the medical examiner did say that the bump on his head, the blow to his head, it would not have been life-threatening. It could have just been from him falling, or they weren't exactly sure. But when he examined the bullet wound, it said, and I'm going to quote what he said. It said, "The bullet entered the lower chest wall going through the left shoulder. It punctured the esophagus and caused profuse bleeding from the mouth." So I really wish that I could have actually found the autopsy report, but unfortunately, the case files normally at this time probably didn't have all the, the fun stuff in it.
Right. And I doubt we'd even be able to find those at all.
Oh, I don't know about that. So it makes me think. It says, enter the lower chest wall going through the left shoulder. So I'm thinking it was kind of I don't know if it was like left shoulder as in straight out, like the basically left arm, or left shoulder as in like up, or not sure.
Yeah.
Or his back. I don't know.
Right. So not exactly sure, but either way, whoever shot him was on his right-hand side, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Because then it had to be a good angle because it tore through his esophagus. So,
right.
I mean, it had to have been at a really steep angle.
Yeah.
Like maybe he was trying to turn as he shot. I don't know. Either way, it was kind of a strange path, it seemed. But either way, bullet completely passed through and it was not left. Mm-hmm. So the doctor said he did what he could with Johanna, but there wasn't enough left to determine a cause of death. So Johanna still to this day does not have a cause of death, unfortunately. There was no evidence of any type of cranial wounds at all. So that couldn't have been, any kind of cause of death. There was nothing wrong with her head, basically, is the only thing that they could examine was her head, because that was pretty much all that was left. So they speculated she possibly either maybe could have been shot in the lower part of her body, and maybe that could have killed her, or they also had the possibility of being burned alive. Not sure. Ultimately, still, cause of death is unknown.
Yeah.
So sheriff was very determined to find a bullet, so they went back and started searching again. They started in the bedroom, but they didn't find anything, so they went into the living room. They found 2 shell casings, and they had rolled under a chair, and they appeared to be from a .32 caliber bullet. In the corner of the room, beside a trunk that stood near the bedroom door, they found a slug that fit in one of those casings. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense if the bodies were moved post-mortem, because they found that slug near the bedroom door, basically. So it could have been that maybe John was in his bedroom, heard a commotion out in his house, and was trying to hurry up and put some pants on, exited his bedroom, and was immediately shot. Maybe it could have been that way too.
Wait, the trunk was by the door on the outside of the bedroom?
On the outside of the bedroom. Mm-hmm.
Okay, got you. Okay, because I'm like, wait, because I'm so sorry. For the longest time, I thought that it was like on the inside of the bedroom. So I'm like, so someone shot him inside the bedroom?
No.
Who? What? Okay.
No.
Okay. That makes way more sense. I was just like, hold up, Paige. Remember all the theories we were discussing? I think that's one of them.
No.
Okay.
The slug was found on the outside of the bedroom.
Okay. So
near the door, though.
That makes me...
Near the door to the bedroom.
No, I know. So that makes me think. So now that we've established where the trunk is and where they found the bullet, so then the blood above the bed must have been from John.
Well, it depends on how closely that wall was to the...
Right, because I mean, like, that's just kind of my thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
So anyway, so far they've only found the 2 shell casings and the 1 slug. So at this time they'd only found the 2 shell casings and the slug. So they were turning over the rest of the house. They looked in the walls and the ceilings to maybe see if there was something wedged in either the walls or the ceiling. Didn't find anything. Mm-hmm. So the slug and the casings were turned over to investigators William Abernathy and Chick Brannon, and because they had arrived with Superintendent James Christensen from the Illinois B of I, which is Bureau of Investigation. That's how I will refer to it, as the B of I.
Okay. I'm sorry, you said superintendent, and I was like, the school
superintendent? Yeah, everybody showed up.
He's there with the circuit clerk.
Yeah.
And the attorney.
Right, exactly. So the slug was approximately .32 caliber and steel jacketed, possibly a foreign make. So they speculated it could have been from a Walter, which was made in Germany, or a Browning, which was made in Belgium. Both were favorites of Nazi officers during World War II. Fun fact.
Fun. Nazi.
But both guns were also sold in the U.S. They also could have been brought home from World War II as souvenirs. Yes. So they also noted that the bullets, they could have been fired from most American-made .32 caliber pistols as well. So they really had no idea. They just knew it was a .32. Uh-huh. So by this time, the mayor, Anton Novak, I believe is how you say it. I'm going to say Novak. That's what we're assuming. By this time, the mayor of Panama, Anton Novak, had arrived, and he was assisting the fire chief and other village officials in searching for clues. As you did.
What time is this?
I'm thinking it's like afternoonish by this time.
Yeah, it's definitely been a few.
Definitely been a few hours since everybody had gotten there and the crowd had formed. I'm really thinking it's like afternoon and not like early afternoon. But he started helping searching for clues, as you did, because everybody searched for clues back then.
Yeah.
It was thought that the killer had exited through the basement door because, he had locked all the windows. The front door was also bolted, so they're thinking that the front door is bolted maybe to keep people out in case something was heard, and then he went out the basement door. So Sheriff Marley, yes?
Yeah, you said the basement door was unlocked. Though,
I believe I read that it was.
There, okay, because I know you. Yeah, because I know you said, "Oh, they're all."
No,
the
I think the basement door was unlocked, and I think I said that. If you were listening to me,
I was, and you
incorrect.
Didn't say that,
so Sheriff Marley and Deputy Hanisco, they went out through the basement to see if they could find anything. There was a ton of footprints, though, at the back basement door. So they didn't really see much around there, but they ended up seeing a really faint set of footprints, single footprints too, nothing that's a ton of people, that was leading away from the house and towards a fence that had separated the Cerkvenick property from an empty field. So basically, from what I'm understanding, is the Cerkvenick property had a decent amount of land because, they had 8 cows. And there was a fence basically that ended their property, and then there was an empty field behind their house, and then on the other side of that was Mayor Novak's house. So it was kind of this field that separated it, which also Mayor Novak's house was in Bond County. So that's how close the county lines were between these houses. So there was an abandoned well also over on the other side of Mayor Novak's house as well. They followed the footprints to the fence, and they looked and saw that the top of the fence had been kind of scuffed, like somebody had walked or climbed over the fence, or just simply walked over the fence. They just really talented that way.
Right, of course. It's just a stride.
The footprints had started again on the other side of the fence, leading kind of towards the field, but possibly like towards town. But then they ended up losing the footprints. It was too faint to follow. The Springfield crew, good Lord, crew also said, the footprints were not deep enough to make casts of them, so they weren't able to do that. But they ended up, the BFI in Springfield took Joanna's head, because again, that was really all that was left of it. And they took her ashes that they were able to get off the bed, and the blanket, took all of that back to Springfield for analysis to see if there was any kind of accelerant on the blanket. By the evening is when the Cerkvenick children arrived. They told the investigators that their parents didn't have as much money as was rumored, and I'm pretty sure that they had eventually said that they didn't know that if they had any money buried. I'm pretty sure they were trying to quash that rumor. The places that they knew where money was, though, they said the jar in the kitchen, which again was empty, and their mother's black suede purse, which they said that she did keep it in the bedroom, but she kept it in between her mattresses on her bed. So Joanna's bed was the other bed in the bedroom that was not burned. So she was actually burned on John's bed. So when they got into the bedroom, looked between the mattresses, what was left there was one of their house slippers. Black suede purse was gone. So basically, the killer was just being a real dick, it seems like. Either he's being a dick and being like, I got the money, or he was freaking out and was like, what can I put in here to make it look like there's something still there and they won't suspect anything?
Well, Yeah, because we know the supposed killer is quite a bit of a narcissist. I'm sure it was, haha,
right.
No one will ever catch
and
me.
just kind of jab
that's what it was.
at whoever found him.
Yeah.
Which is a real dick move.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They told investigators also that their father was never without his wallet. He always had his wallet on him, and that's where his money was.
Yeah.
But again, his pockets were empty. They searched everywhere in the house. They could not find the wallet. What was weird was they ended up finding it in the basement. It was up on a stringer, it said, where I read, above the joists in the basement. So it was like way up in the rafters of the basement and like strung up there somehow.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I had no idea what the hell those words were.
Are you being serious, or are you being very sarcastic?
No, I knew what
you didn't know what a joist was,
but nope.
I thought we taught you better.
No, so that's on you.
So they found it. So again, it was up on the ceiling of the basement.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
It still had $472 in it. So not sure how it got there. Obviously, the killer didn't find it. Not sure why John put it there. The kids were also confused. They didn't know why it was there, but that's where they found it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, like, even if I honestly, like, I can think of a million scenarios where I'm like, oh, this possibly could have been the reason, but at the same time, it's like,
no, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense, and especially, I mean, especially if, like, oh, I just didn't have my wallet on me at that time. I never put my wallet on my ceiling when I don't have it. So
I definitely couldn't put my wallet on my ceiling.
No, I don't really keep it up there for safekeeping. So
no, not a place I would think.
Yeah, no. Okay.
So the kids were asked about valuables in the house, if there was anything else that they thought to look for that might have been missing. But really, they said the only things that were missing was their mother's purse and the money in the jar in the kitchen. So they knew that there was quite a bit of money in their mother's purse, but they didn't have an exact amount, but they thought several $100s.
Right.
So that's kind of where they stopped that night. And this was, what day was this? I believe it was Friday when this happened. So then Saturday, oh no, I have it here, Sunday. So Saturday is when the bodies were found. Uh-huh. So then that night, that's kind of where they ended after looking and talking to the Cerkvenick children. Mm-hmm. So the investigation continued very early the next day, which was Sunday. They were very adamant about finding the murder weapon because obviously still haven't found it yet. There were dozens of gun owners in Panama because of course there were. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them had that same caliber weapon that was used in the murders. So almost all of them, I would imagine, were sent up to Springfield for the ballistic tests.
Right.
And the owners of the guns were sent in for questioning and set up for lie detector tests. Lie detector tests are a big thing at this point in time.
Yes.
And set to be like the truth.
Right, exactly.
So
even though we all know they're kind of bullshit.
Very much not.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It measures your stress levels.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's what it does, essentially.
Right.
So if you're stressed, you're lying. So
which I was, side note, heard a little bit about lie detector tests that even the people who were telling the truth could be thought to be lying because of their stress levels, because they were so stressed about having to take it and all this crap hooked up to them, and it's just a stressful situation.
Yeah.
And sometimes they were thought to be lying as well, even though they were telling the truth.
I mean, yeah, I think I would be nervous too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in a police station getting questioned for a crime that I didn't commit. So of course I'm like, I gotta make sure I look innocent.
Right. And like the basic like the first questions that they ask you as like a baseline.
Yeah,
like
baseline
is your name Paige Farmer? I don't know. Is it? Is that my name? I don't know.
I'd be like, just like when I announced, "Hi, I'm Paige." Wait,
hold on a second. That doesn't seem right.
I think. Let me do the math. I don't think that's right.
Doesn't sound right.
No.
So anyway, back to looking for the murder weapon.
Yes.
So all the guns that were sent to Springfield were all cleared. They were not. None of them were the murder weapons.
Yes.
All the people who owned the guns, they were all released. They were not the murderers. They ended up being very unsuccessful on that Sunday in their search for the murder weapon. Come Monday, that's what I meant to say. So by Monday, that's when the funeral was for John and Johanna. The 5 Cerkvenick children were present, and the pallbearers were all friends and neighbors, old co-workers, and including Mayor Anton Novak. He was one of the pallbearers as well.
Including Mayor Novak. It's okay.
The investigation continued. It was said that the couple possibly was going to buy a TV. It was kind of a whole thing about this TV purchase. Basically, it turns out it was supposed to be delivered on that Saturday because they thought it was already purchased. It was supposed to be delivered that day. Nothing happened. Sheriff called all kinds of TV places around the area, Litchfield, Hillsborough, Greenville, everywhere. Nobody said that they had purchased anything. So they were thinking they were just going to, and they just hadn't. So they looked into the car that was found or on scene. And they really didn't get much out of that either. They were calling all kinds of different mechanics again around the area, and nobody came up with anything.
Yeah.
Really didn't amount to anything.
Yeah, because I think those 2 leads are like with the TV repairman, because there was a lot to that for some reason. And
so much to that.
Yeah, and it ended up just being
unnecessary.
A dead end. Right. And then of course like the cream colored car that's apparently we've seen twice, correct?
Well, it was seen by a couple different people.
Okay. And I mean that too also ended up being.
We will actually get a little bit more into the cream colored car.
Oh.
In episode 2.
Oh.
So I'm just gonna leave you in suspense for that.
Ew.
A little juicy thing there.
Leave you titillated.
So nothing was really happening at this point. They kind of hit a dead end. Kind of early on. There was lots of phone tips coming in. So many phone tips to the point where Sheriff Marley was like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be talking to every single person in Panama by the time this is all over. Which is not that many because it was only like 500 people.
Yeah, but still, an investigation.
Still, it's a lot of people.
That's a lot.
So, people in Panama were terrified because nothing was happening. They didn't know who it was. There was rumors flying everywhere.
Yeah.
Naturally.
Everybody was locking their doors now.
Everybody was locking the doors, which again, never happened. Panamese. Families that lived in Panama.
So Panamese.
Panamese. Families who had lived in Panama since the coal mine had opened, they were picking up and moving. They were like, screw this. We're out. We don't need this in our lives. But Mayor Novak, man, he was really reassuring people that killers can be found, brought to justice. We got this. Calm down. It's all good.
What a guy.
Great.
Yeah, what a guy. What a good guy.
What a swell dude.
Right?
Man, he was just reassuring everybody. Pillar of the community.
Pillar, yes.
So the holidays were very quickly approaching, as they are now, which is stupid.
Oh, they already have Christmas trees out at Michael's, by the way.
I know. Walmart's all about the Christmas stuff right now.
It pissed me off.
Yeah, it does. So the investigators, they were running down lead after lead. They were bringing so many people in for questioning and lie detector tests because, of course, we had to do that. Nothing amounted from anything. So after the new year, phones seemed to pick up with some intensity. people were remaining anonymous and giving some interesting clues. Mm-hmm. There was one name that seemed to crop up a lot in these phone calls, and that was one of Mayor Anton Novak.
Piece of garbage.
Dun dun dun. And so yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna leave it for episode 1, because then we're gonna get into some real fun stuff.
That's where you want to end it?
That's where I want to end it, because
my God,
this goes into we're gonna get into some fun stuff with Mr. Novak here. Because that's pretty much the beginning of everything.
Yeah.
The rest is all when they started to look into Mr. Novak here.
How long is episode 2 gonna be? I'm like, there's so much more to go over.
I know.
And you're a stutterer. Sorry if that offended anyone, but you kind of run yourself over.
Way to go.
Your brain goes, but then your mouth doesn't, so you're like, families. Families. So yeah, okay, so apparently that's episode 1. I hate you. Okay, so that concludes episode 1, I guess. And
well, if there's anything you'd like to add to that, if there's some things that you've thought of.
I mean, no, because my research was just about Panama, and you pretty much got everything that I had to say, because I had no research, really. Mine was the Wikipedia page on Panama, and from what Mama told us. there was my research. So,
nice.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to add. Except, I don't know. I was going to be like, I guess we don't really want to slander people, but I don't care. I don't give a shit about that guy. So,
yeah.
So we're going to be saying some not nice things.
Yeah, no, we're not very nice things.
No. Nothing
about
nice to
him.
say about that dude.
Nope. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
Getting into some of his stuff.
Yeah, that's fine. He's dead now.
Obviously.
Or I'm assuming, I don't know.
I mean, he was 60 years old in 1950.
You never know.
You're correct. You just never know.
Hey, we've made a lot of medical strides. I don't know.
All right.
I'm not a science person.
No.
No, not even a little bit. So,
nope.
Okay, so I guess that concludes episode 1.
Just gonna leave you in suspense here.
Yeah, leave us in suspense, and apparently next episode's gonna be like 3 hours long.
Quite, I mean, maybe. I'm gonna try. I'm kidding.
Okay. Maybe. So hopefully our setups will be a little bit better next time. We'll see.
I mean, not next. Not episode 2, because, well, we're doing that now.
So fun fact, we're gonna be recording episode 2 the same day. It just gives me 2 extra weeks to edit. So
because you're probably gonna need that to edit episode 2, because there's a lot more in episode 2.
Damn it.
So you got your work cut out for you.
I know. And episode 3 is gonna be my episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be all about me.
All about you.
Right. I'm not doing a topic. I'm just gonna be talking about myself.
Well, yeah. I mean, we are. This is a podcast about creepy things, so it would make sense.
Exactly. It's all about me. I'm super creepy.
So creepy.
So yeah. So if you want to give us a like on Facebook at whatever
2K away.
There we go. And if you want to give us a follow on Instagram, it's at 2K away podcast. I haven't decided if we're going to make an email yet, because why bother? right now. So
we're just recording episode 1. So right. I mean,
exactly. So we'll see. Our episodes will come out every Tuesday. Our first one will be out on October 13th. Hopefully you're listening to it on the release date. I don't know your schedule. Second episode will be up the following week. I guess we'll see you in the next one.
We'll see ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.